All right, everyone. Saturday night here, the voice of college football. Appreciate y'all stopping by for what is an impromptu and these days and for the foreseeable future, what will be impromptu live streams and content here at the voice of college football. Appreciate your flexibility. That's one reason why you like, just hit the like button right now. Even if you disagree with me, if you enjoy the college football content, just hit the like button. And then also it's a reason to subscribe here at the Voice of College Football is because you don't know when we're going live. I don't know when we're going live. Much of my life is dictated to me by others. So I don't know when I'm going live. Therefore, you don't know when I'm going live. Therefore, the best way to approach this is please subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. It's the College Football Late Night Show here at the Voice of College Football, presented by FanDuel. Plenty of college football that you can partake of. College basketball, I should say, these days on FanDuel. We may check out some odds a little bit later, but we are presented by FanDuel here at the Voice of College Football across the network. So we appreciate our affiliation with the fine folks at FanDuel. So what happened was each and every offseason, we've been doing this roughly for 10 years. We present our conference rankings at the end of the season. These have become more and more complicated due to a few different factors. One that comes to mind, of course, is the relevance or validity, I should say, of bowl games and the competition on the field in bowl games because of the opt-outs. And therefore, the motivation involved, the coaching changes that ensue, not just the head coaches, but of course, coaching staffs, tons of head coaches not present to coach their teams during postseason play, and tons of offensive and defensive coordinators not there as well. We can wrestle with that. We're going to go straight to your calls. The reason we are here, even after we did a number of videos, please check those out. Check out the individual videos where we hear the voice of college football. If you are new to this, we just don't throw out the SEC went 12-9 and the Big Ten went 11-12. Therefore, the SEC must be better than the Big Ten. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Those are not the actual numbers, just making an example. No, we dive deep into it. We look at the results. We look at the seedings of the team. So I seed all the teams, one through whatever in each conference. I actually got a suggestion today, which I thought was a pretty valid one from somebody, and I will give this some consideration going forward, that I use my 1 through 136 rankings and use those as seedings instead of just 1 through 16, 1 through 17, or 1 through 18 in a particular conference, 1 through 136 to properly seed the teams and compare the matchups. So a Wisconsin-Alabama matchup that is a 15 seed in the Big Ten, a 4 seed in the SEC becomes, let's say, a 72 seed Wisconsin nationally against a 9 seed Alabama, for example. That would be interesting to do. So again, we present all the metrics. I'm going to run through them very quickly because I want to get to your calls. So what happened last time was we ran out of time, and I want to give you time to respond to my rankings and also have a conversation about what could be the best conferences or the ranking order for 2026 based on recruiting classes, based on, of course, transfer portal classes more than anything, based on quarterback changes, based on coaching changes. This is something I got to say that I've given zero thought to, but I think it's a great discussion going forward to look at each conference and say, is the conference better? The conference not as good, most likely, than it was in 2025 based on coaching changes, quarterback changes, personnel changes, whether those be portal or recruiting. So we got Michael here. We got the Real MVP. I've left the link in the chat. We would like some other callers. Let me present this very quickly, or actually I'll take the call at the same time that I present our compilation of information involving the various conferences. If you missed last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, the live stream there. Because I'm sure the conversation itself with these two callers and more will lead us to the metrics that we provided. We got Michael stopping by here at the Voice of College Football. Michael, how you doing?
Hanging in there, and yourself, sir?
I'm doing just fine. Good to hear from you.
Yep, not bad. It's getting close to spring football time. I think I got 2 weeks before they start.
Yeah, and I'll do another promo here that I have cut videos. It may seem like I've just kind of gone away and done nothing, but I have actually posted a ton of videos on the other team channels of spring previews. Michigan, Ohio State, Kentucky, Arkansas, Clemson, Miami, Oklahoma, and others. So check out those videos sizing up spring personnel.
All right. I got one question before we get to the topic which you had. I think you did the stream on Tuesday night, breaking the conferences. This past Tuesday?
I don't remember when it was. Yeah, it was sometime in the last 2 weeks.
No, because I thought you just had a live stream earlier this week.
No, I've not had a live stream for a while. Other than the Iowa and Ohio State and Miami live streams, I do.
Oh, okay. Because I thought it was a live stream the other night.
Whatever it was. It's been a while. It wasn't this week. I know that.
Oh, I thought it might have been on Tuesday. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, I was going to ask you about the deal with Brandon Sorsby with the University of Cincinnati.
Yep.
How's that going to work with Texas Tech? If he ends up, will that deduct from his new contract with NIL, or will that be straight out of his pocket?
Well, technically, it's going to be out of his pocket. But understand, when we deal with high-level athletes, they are being taken care of, meaning Texas Tech is going to step in and say, we understand the cost of Brendan Sorsby is not just what we pay Brendan Sorsby, but the compensation that we have to deliver based on the previous agreement. So we need to deliver this to the NIL collective or whatever the case may be at Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just wondering and stuff like that. For the most part, I agree with you, but I still have, like, even though it was an ACC and Big Ten championship, I still rank him overall the conferences. I know it's going to take forever a day to do all the schools and stuff, but here's how I would rank it this year. I would have the Big Ten 1, SEC 1A, Big 12 3, SEC 4. No, not ACC. ACC 4. Now go Mountain West number 5.
Okay, so first of all, what does 1A mean? It sounds like it means that's not a tie for first. It's 1A. So actually, there are 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one. And, I'm sure you've heard that before. 1 and 1A.
Oh, of course I have. I'm just pushing you a little bit, Michael. So what does 1A mean? It means they're number 2, correct?
Yeah, I guess you can say that.
And you know what? I'm looking at the videos posted here. I think you're right. Did I just do this live stream last Tuesday? It seems like I did it like a month ago.
Yes, because you thought about maybe taking the calls, but you didn't because you ran out of time.
That's funny. I thought that was like 2 weeks ago. That's how my life is moving. It's moving at like this pace that I can't keep up with it. That was 4 days ago. It seems like it was, I literally thought it was 2 weeks ago.
Are you on the USS Enterprise going warp speed?
I guess I am. I've got a lot of stuff going on. That's for sure.
And hopefully it's all good for you and stuff like that.
Mostly, yes.
But no, I was just wondering and stuff like that. Like, what would you think about that and stuff like that? And then as far as like, I even think there's some teams in the Big Ten that and ACC that are somewhat similar, but I'm not sure how you would rate that yourself. Like in Iowa, maybe an Ole Miss, or do you think? All right, I'll go with Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin is down here, Illinois, IU, Penn State. That would probably be my top 5 from the Big Ten.
Top 5 of what?
The best 5. No. Straight. Actually, can I take Michigan out and put Oregon in? Have IU, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and who do I have?
Are you talking about the top 5 going into 2026 or the top 5 based on 25?
Either or.
You're putting Penn State in the top 5 of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
They went 3-6.
But that was just a bad year. But do you think that with
well, that's why I'm asking. Is that 2025? Is that 2026? Is that a program ranking? You just told me it was 2025, and I'm telling you they went 3-6.
Yeah.
So they weren't one of the top 5 teams in the Big Ten. I'm just clarifying.
I'm just saying, yeah, even though they went 3-6, last season, can you still consider them a top 5 team in the Big Ten? Even though they had a down year last year?
Program, yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Two different things.
All right, I would have
They're connected, but two different things.
Okay, I would have Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, Mississippi, Ole Miss. I don't know why I was going to say in Ole Miss. And I would put Texas A&M in there as my top 5 from the SEC.
Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leaving out LSU and Tennessee.
All right. Okay.
Put those 5 teams against the 5 teams in Big Ten.
Oh, that's what we're doing here. Okay.
Head to head, who wins the majority of the games?
If all 5 could play all 5, we got 25 games, right?
No. I mean, yeah, I guess you would have 25 games. But I'm just saying you would just throw them in a hat like in a
Gotcha. I understand.
And just pick like Georgia would play this team, Ohio State would play this team.
Yes.
They wouldn't play each other and stuff like that. I'm just saying
it would be more valid if they all played each other every time. If they played 25 games. This is not real life. We're playing hypothetical here, so we might as well just play them all.
Yeah, true.
So Ohio State's going to win, probably go 5-0. They might go 4-1. They could definitely trip up against any one of those teams. They're really good, and you would think Oregon's going to go 5-0 or 4-1. And Indiana is the best team in the country. They would probably go 5-0, but they could trip up against. I'm going to say that this is the reason I rated the Big Ten as the best conference. I squeaked them out with a victory for 2025 as the best conference, even though the results on the field really don't back it up. The results on the field were not decidedly for anyone. 25 games, I'm going to bet that the Big Ten would win 14 out of 25.
Okay. Now, when you squeaked out the Big Ten, what was the margin, like better than a razor's edge?
Yes, slightly better than a razor's edge. It's not like I agonized it and lost any sleep. But so let me put it this way, Michael. During the SEC's dominance from roughly 2005, 2006 in that range, up until a couple of years ago, every season I've done this, which has been about 10 years, up until a couple of years ago, it was actually pointless for me to do it. I just did it because I loved it. I wanted to present it to everyone. And I always said, this is just an exercise in futility because we know what the end result is going to be, that the SEC is the best conference, and it's not even debatable. And anyone who wants to debate that with me, please, I will take on your debate for debating the SEC from, let's say, 2022 and back. It's not debatable. And you would see it in the numbers. Like the SEC would be like 16-7 against the other conferences and would win all the big matchups. When I mean all, obviously not all, but the great majority. And it wasn't close. This is just a free-for-all. If you just look at wins and losses, the Big Ten's 11-12. The best conference in college football is 11-12 against other power conference teams. Now that does include Notre Dame. So that's a Purdue loss. That's who else out of the Big Ten played? That's a USC loss. Did anyone else play Notre Dame out of the Big Ten? I think that's it. USC and Purdue. So technically the Big Ten went 11-10 against the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, but that's far from dominant.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to flip it here. Mountain West, American, Conference USA, and Sun Belt. How would you rank those as the best of the G4 conferences?
So I noted this on, as you say, Tuesday's live stream, that I ranked the power conferences Big 10 1, SEC 2, Big 12 3, and the ACC a clear number 4. The American Conference, to me, is clearly the best Group of 5 conference.
Okay. Would the Sun Belt be like this second best? Or
no, the Mountain West?
No, I mean, you said, so you would have Mountain West better than the Sun Belt, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, I didn't really make a distinction after the American and the Mountain West. The American's number 5, and the
And
Mountain
Sun
West
Belt.
is
Or,
number 6.
all right, because you had Sun Belt. I don't know what you got up on the screen, but I was just wondering stuff like that. Okay.
Look at
Nope.
this from the American Conference. The American Conference went 40-25 in non-conference games. Look at these other conferences. They're not even close. The American Conference went 8-16 against power conference teams. That's pretty respectable. 8-16.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you break down the individual performances, yes, Tulane, Memphis, South Florida, Navy. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think before I let you go, sir, I know and stuff like that. So, who do you think will be the G4, possibly the G4 representatives next year? You think in the group of 5 in the playoff, or is it still too early to venture a guess?
I have no idea. Well, I have an idea just because we know who typically the best teams are and we know who the best programs are. Mm-hmm. I can almost assuredly, with doing no research on it, that Boise State's going to be in the running. And
well, then
we'll see about the teams that lost their head coaches, obviously, James Madison and Tulane.
Well, did Boise State just move to the Pac-12?
Yes.
So now you got it. Now, is that going to be? Are they going to be back to group? A Power 5? Is that going to be back to Power 5, or is it still going to be just? I didn't know how they were going to do that with like the Pac-12 once they get back up. So they're going to be like a G4 representative again. Okay, just trying to figure it out. All right, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking my call. And
thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate you being here.
All right. See ya.
The incomparable Michael Hogue, our Purdue fan. Can you get some more Purdue fans in here? We love Purdue. 0-9 in the Big Ten. And Michael showing up for some college football talk. Good to see Tukey G here. Karen stopping by. Karen Dwighthead. Okay. Or D. I gotcha. Michael. Mick, good to see you. Sunny Styles is all the talk at the Combine. I used to love the NFL Combine. And it's not that I love it less. It's just that I just don't have time for it. And I'm not covering the sport every day, all day, like I used to. So the last couple of years, the Combine has just completely gone off my radar. I used to just like it was like baseball opening day, or it was March Madness Thursday. It's noon Eastern time. Boom. Like, wow, this is when we start. So I knew Thursday, NFL Network, 10 a.m. or whatever the time was to turn on the NFL Combine. And then it was on in my house all weekend, all the time. This year, no. Last year, not at all. And I don't know about years prior. I don't know when this just dropped off my radar. However, as is mentioned here by Mick, Sunny Styles. And it's not so much just the time, the 40 time and whatever else he did. I saw his vertical where they have the little pegs and you have to see how many you can touch. That I couldn't really tell how impressive that was. Just watching it, not seeing a measurement, just watching him leap. I'm not an expert in watching, athletes participate in Olympic type trials or tests or measurements to just without seeing the measurement itself against the other athletes, how good that was. So I'm not saying it wasn't impressive. I'm saying it didn't impress me because I just couldn't tell. I could tell that he can jump higher than I can, but to watch him again, forget about the time in the 40 that was 4.28. Just to watch him run it, I don't know if I've ever watched anybody run the 40 that looked like they were supersonic fast, but they just glided at the same time. It was crazy. And I saw a clip with Sunny Styles' mother about do we have any other styles coming down the pike here? But apparently not. But of course, there could be grandchildren. So look out, rest of college football. But man, my goodness, Sonny Styles. All right. Before we hit the real MVP, we've got a book selection for all of you during the off season that we're proud of. It's a Disputed National Champions. It's a reset of the 1990s. Historical reset of the 1990s. Why the 1990s? This is the most transformative decade of college football. Why? Because this enacted the most change in our postseason and selection of a national champion in the history of the sport. Just think about what happened in the 1990s, going from the poll era through into the coalition and then the BCS era. And so that's why I chose the 1990s. It's on Amazon. It's $9.99, folks. It's $9.99. They told me I should charge much more for this. That's what the folks at Amazon, or no, I'm sorry, not at Amazon. They don't care what I charge. Whoever it was, the publisher, self-publishing school, they told me that I should charge much more for this than $9.99. But it's $9.99. Disputed National Champions. If you don't like it, no, I'm not going to send your money back. It's not a money back guarantee, but you will be the first that doesn't like it. All the comments, which I should have collected a long time ago, some of them are on Amazon. I don't know, 25, 50, whatever the number is, but most of them have come in here. So I should have collected all those, but don't take it from me. Take it from your fellow college football fans. Disputed National Champions. It's not just a history book. We take each one of these seasons and we tell you at the end the ramifications. What transpired that season that impacted the rest of college football going forward. Also, we take each one of these seasons and we put it into future eras. We take, for example, 1990. We put it into the BCS era to show you how it would have played out and who would have been selected. We put it into the 14 playoff era. We put it into the 12-team college football playoff era and the 14 that could be possibly coming soon. So, Disputed National Champions, just go to Amazon, put it in the search bar. It'll pop up instantly, or you can just grab the link down in the description section below. We got your real MVP stopping by.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I don't mind the conclusion that the Big Ten's better than the SEC because it's a toss-up, basically.
Yes.
But I do have a problem with
making.
Right. I do have a problem with some of your process.
Okay.
So I want to attack process, not conclusion, because it's easy to say your conclusion's trash. It's horrible. So I think this year, the results in terms of conference record are as less valid as they have been in any year, except for maybe last year, because of how big the conferences are, how few matchups we have between top teams. So I don't think looking solely at conference record and then assigning them a C just based on conference record should be the way we do things.
Okay.
Do you have any disagreement with that?
Well, certainly I have a disagreement with it to a certain extent because there is more uniformity. So your point is well taken. I totally get your point. When you had a 12-team Big 12, I'm sorry, a 10-team Big 12, everybody follow along here. You have a 12, let me back up, a 10-team Big 12. You've got a 9-game conference schedule. That is the perfect scenario to evaluate those teams. Everybody plays everyone. Now we can bicker about teams had 5 home games versus 4 and all that. But basically, they all played each other.
It was as equitable as you're ever going to get.
Perfectly valid results at the end to say 7-2 is better than 4-5.
Right.
Now we're in a situation where, and you brought this to light a couple months ago. Was it? Yeah. Duke won the ACC championship. Obviously, they had to defeat Virginia in the actual championship game. But to get to the ACC championship game, defeated no one in the conference who had a winning record. huge disparity between once we get to 16, 17, 18 teams in a conference and you miss not playing 6, 7, 8, 9 teams that, we're looking ahead. I was just on Michigan podcast on Tuesday, looking at Ohio State's schedule and Michigan, but even more so, Ohio State's is more difficult. They've got a brutal schedule this year. Well, they had an easy schedule last year. If you look at their two schedules, they might have a better season this year and have a worse record. Yes, there's a great disparity there. So I totally get your point there. It's valid. It's more valid than it's ever been. I would also say, though, that once we introduce non-conference games, though, that the disparity of competition and levels of competition even grows even wider when you think about it. Because the competition within any one conference, about 80% of that competition at least is very similar. There are some outliers. There's Indiana. They're an outlier. Virginia Tech this year was awful, outlier, etc. Purdue's an outlier. But most of the conference plays similar football from a competitive standpoint. So that's why I would hold on to that. But that doesn't mean I won't make an adjustment in the future because somebody else had a similar, they said, well, you rank the teams 1 through 136. Why don't you just use those seedings?
Oh, I get that, and that is where a bit of the subjectivity comes in because we don't have a perfect system. And I've harped about Texas A&M and how having them as anywhere in the top 4 is madness. But I also want to make a different team today to poke at, and that is the Penn State Nittany Lions. Every predictive metrics or projective metrics as well that's based on the result. Some of them, Mark, don't even have them as a top 10 team in the Big Ten. Some of them have Penn State as a top 10 team in the country based on how they lost to Indiana, how they lost to Iowa, how they lost to Oregon, and super close matchups. So to me, having Penn State as the 12th or 13th best team, Big Ten team, it isn't justifiable in any way, shape, or form because of how good they lost to these elite teams that nobody else has even touched throughout the season last year.
Okay. So you would pick whatever metrics are out there. The Football Power Index comes to mind, but there are others, the Sagarin or the S&P Plus. You would go to whichever one you think is the most valid and select that.
Yeah, well, I would use them all. And then I would use my own judgment to make benefit off of it, similar to what the committees do in basketball, baseball. It's all subjective in which one you value more. But I do think all of these things need to be taken into account when projecting seeding lines and projecting which team's resume is better than another, and just saying, well, this team went 7-1. They're automatically better than every team 6-2 and 5-3. I think it's an inaccurate way of doing things.
So I'm going to make a quick 15-second statement that maybe some people will interpret as whining, but I've never made this excuse before, but I've made it a few times here in the last several months. A lot of that I don't have time for. So would I want to do this more accurately? Do I know how to do it more accurately? Absolutely. Is it a waste of my time? Absolutely. Like the time that I put into just the way it's done, the way I present it is a waste of my time. And that's not a slight at anyone who's watching us, because you guys are the reason I'm sitting here on a Saturday night and not doing something else, is because I enjoy all of you and I enjoy our conversation and want to hang on to our community and our chat. But even at the level that I do it now, it's a waste of my time. I know how to do it better, but that would be a further waste of my time.
I understand it, but I do think there is. I'm not saying it's not a waste of your time. That's not my point. My point is it could dramatically change the result because every metric has the SEC as the best conference, and then
I don't know that it would drastically change it.
Okay, it would flip the Big Ten and SEC if you did a deeper dive into it, because every metric has the SEC as the best conference by a bit. not by a wide margin, but they are slightly better than the Big Ten. Then the Big Ten is decidedly better than the Big 12. And then the Big 12 is decidedly better than the ACC. Now, if it's one metric or one outlet that says that, then that's, cherry picking and straw picking. But when every metric, when every outlet says the exact same thing, there's something there. And to me, this argument that I see in chat, 3-6 in conference, you lose any argument. I'm sorry, you can be 3-6 in your conference and significantly better than a team that's 9-3 or 10-2. This, you are what your record says you are mentality is actively killing the sport. I mean, look at Ohio State's schedule next year. They go 10-2, they should be a lock for the playoffs. They go 9-3, in my opinion, they should be a lock in the playoffs. I don't care that they're 9-3. Sorry. As long as they're not getting blown out in those 3 losses, they're much better than most teams in the Big Ten and ACC that can go 11-1 or even 12-0. A 9-3 Ohio State team at the end of the year will most likely be metrically ranked higher than a 12-0 Texas Tech team. That's just the way it is. Now, you may not like it. You may call it unfair, but that's the reality of the situation. And the reason I can say that, Mark, is because Alabama this year with 4 losses is almost ranked identically to Texas Tech in almost all these rankings. And nobody says Texas Tech and Alabama is the same, but the metrics say they're basically the same team.
And based on what we saw on the field, I don't have an issue with that. Alabama played a number of times against difficult competition to show the good. First time against Georgia, and the awful, and an Oklahoma playoff win, but the awful against Indiana, the awful the second time against Georgia. Texas Tech basically played one elite team, and they failed miserably. And they played 2 good teams, meaning BYU twice, 2 good teams that would be like Alabama playing Tennessee, basically. And they destroyed them. But we just didn't have much of a sample size for Texas Tech. So it would not surprise me in any way if Alabama played Texas Tech last season that Alabama would have won the football game. I would say about the metrics you provide that to me, those are only as valid. Like, we can't just automatically say because this computer says that how these teams should be ranked regardless of record, that we're going to trust the computer. I want to know what goes into the computer, or I want to have a track record that I have watched over the course of a season, or most likely years, like the FPI, to say, you know what? I don't necessarily trust the FPI, and this is why. And I have seen this repeat itself a number of times where the FPI has shown itself not that it's completely out of whack. Of course, any of us could blindfold ourselves and pick the best teams to a certain extent with some fairly high degree of accuracy, but where the FPI has not been a good judge of the results on the field. For one thing, we get an FPI ranking after 1 or 2 weeks of play. Well, there are a lot of assumptions made in that metric.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I like about a different metric called RPI is there's a bit of assumption, but after the first week of baseball or softball, you'll have some random team you've never heard of be number 1 in the country. And to me, that's a good sign of a good metric, because you got this random team that upsets this good team based on the metric 2 out of 3 times. They should, on the road, no less, they should be way up there. And I absolutely agree with you. But I do think these metrics do give us an indication of how quality strength of a team versus another team. To answer Wet Blanket's question, Utah was not a good football team. They were the empty calories this year of college football. Basically, the McDonald's or Wendy's of college football. You eat it, you get it done with, and you're like, oh, that's all. They had no good wins, all good losses, nothing of substance. The most, honestly, meaningless season of 2026. I don't even know why they were ranked so high in every college football ranking. If you want to talk about a team that was consistently overranked throughout the entire season, Utah's that team. And nobody talked about it through the entire season. Their best win was against what, Houston?
Yeah, and then that just kind of extends the argument because how good was Houston's record? I know they were 10-3, but yeah, Houston was full of a bunch of empty calories as well.
Yeah, they went to overtime against a 2-10 Oregon State team.
Utah, yeah, I was gonna try to find where I had them ranked. I had them ranked a good 5 to 6 spots lower than everyone else. I had them, I believe, 19th in the country. Yeah, it was not a good 11-2 season. So, man, am I losing it? I used to know everybody's scores off the top of my head. Utah lost to BYU by a field goal, I think, like 35-31, something like that. That was one of their losses, correct?
Correct.
And Utah also lost to Texas Tech. No, they lost it.
No, they got throttled by Tech.
I'm sorry, what?
They got throttled by Tech. It was like 40.
Yeah, those were their two losses. They lost to BYU and Texas Tech.
Yeah, and then I'm looking at their schedule. I mean, they beat Kansas. They beat Kansas State by 4, not a particularly good win at all. I mean, and that's it in terms of good wins.
Utah beat Kansas State. I remember going back and watching those highlights. They gave up, I'm not kidding, like 500 yards rushing.
Oh, no, it was insane.
They kind of lucked into a win there. You know, they made plays. They got the job done. Let's look at Utah here.
Yeah, they beat Baylor, Cincinnati, Kansas State, Arizona State, West Virginia, Wyoming, Cal Poly, UCLA, and Colorado.
Win Arizona State 8-5. Yeah, Arizona State 8-5.
Let me ask you this.
And I believe that was without Sam Levitt at quarterback.
Yeah, that's a massive caveat. Would you rather have this schedule and this record, or would you rather be Tennessee, Illinois, those level teams?
Well, yeah, Tennessee and Illinois played against good competition and, you know, showed that they weren't up to the challenge, but at least they had to play those teams over and over and over. Yeah.
I think all those teams I mentioned are very comparable. Would you agree with that?
Utah, Illinois, and Tennessee?
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
As long as we're on the same. And I by the way, I think this is radical opinion, Mark. I think if you got a Big 12 / little person who believes in the underdog story, they would say absolutely no way. This is proof of Big 12 ACC bias. This is proof the system is rigged against us. So that's why I wanted to make that point very clear.
Because Tennessee went 8-5.
Correct.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to ask you about, a little off topic, is Sacramento State is joining the FBS ranks. I mean, they gave the house, the farm, the mortgage, and their kids away in order to get into their conference. Is this a move at all that's any relevance?
Well, I would say I can't speak to it from a financial standpoint, but we have had the largest number of schools leave the FCS ranks to join the FBS in recent years than we've ever had. We've just had this rush of schools: Delaware, Kennesaw State, Liberty, James Madison, etc., Jacksonville State, Sam Houston, etc. A number of them have done so pretty successfully. Sacramento State defeated Stanford, for whatever that's worth, or they barely lost to Stanford. I think they barely lost to Stanford last year, like 30-29, if I'm remember. I think they beat them the year before. Anyway, I have not looked into that. In terms of
I just don't understand what the benefit is for Sacramento State to join a G6 conference when they're paying for everything and they're getting nothing of any substance in return. It's not like significantly more people watch the FCS or the G6 conferences versus the FCS. You're choosing between nobody and nobody. I mean, to me, this is just a disaster waiting to happen for them. They're not a good football program. I've looked at their records over the last 5 and 6 years. They've done nothing of note. They've gone 7-6 multiple times. They've had losing records. They're just a mid-marginal FCS program. So the biggest winner of this move, Mark, is UMass, because they get to play Sacramento State now. So UMass might be able to win a football game every year, which is good for them.
And maybe you're hitting on the reason why what you would think would be the most likely candidates to make this move, like the North Dakota states of the world, why they don't make this move is they see their relevance and their place of status in their own ranks and figure, if we go and join the FBS, we're just going to be another Georgia Southern, Georgia State, somebody like that, most likely, and never really amount to anything. So why not continue to dominate and have significance? Although they largely get ignored, obviously, throughout the season. They do have that couple weekends of notoriety during the playoffs during December where they get a decent TV audience nationally, and they can be proud about a tradition where they dominate at their level.
Right. I will correct you on your analysis. North Dakota State did move up to the Mountain West this year.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they're playing Mountain West football.
Okay, North Dakota State has made that decision. Okay. And I lose track of who's who, but North Dakota State, South Dakota State, I know that they've all been, I know North Dakota State has been the gold standard, right?
Yes.
Maybe I get them mixed up, but North
Dakota State is the Alabama of FCS football.
Yeah. And then you've got the other two have been reasonably successful too, meaning South Dakota State and I believe South Dakota.
Yeah. And then you've got Montana and Montana State who are up there, but everyone else is terrible or irrelevant, basically.
Yeah. I will say the thing that comes to mind when you run that down and the whys of the situation is growing up in Akron, Ohio, or close to Akron, Ohio, back in the day where the newspaper ruled everything, the Akron Beacon Journal used to do a review of the Akron and Kent State football programs every few years. And it would fascinate me, even as a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, that I'd read these they would, in-depth pieces of why do Akron University and Kent State University play, quote unquote, big time college football, because they would just outline the drain on the university this was, how nobody goes to the games, how anybody at the game got in the game for free or for $2, how most of the tickets sold are to like local banks that give them away as just side benefits, and how basically they couldn't even keep up with NCAA standards. The NCAA was just kind of ignoring its own standards of attendance and competitive nature. Like they would have to average something like 17 or 18,000 fans per game to maintain their status, but they didn't. But the NCAA would just ignore it, or they would fabricate the numbers based on these, businesses just hoarding up tickets and nobody going to the games. And why? And it would just come down to basically the universities dodging any reasonable questions as to why they continued to pour into that. And the conclusion was simply they wanted to be able to say, we play major college football.
Fair enough. Fair and good. So good on them. I mean, I don't think that has any meaningful relevance to your average person, but to a few elites out there, I guess it does. I wanted to ask you also about Texas Tech. I don't know if the billionaire donor, Cody Campbell.
Yep.
He is apparently lobbying to amend the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961. Yes. Shout out Matt Zimick for teaching us what the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961 is. He wants to combine all the league's TV rights into one TV right.
Yes.
And then it be distributed. And then from my understanding, now this is where I could get it wrong, but he wants like the government and this board to have control of just the way college football goes and with scheduling and all the decisions that are made. And I'm conflicted about this because I do think college football needs a direction. I'm not sure if this is the direction to go, But I do think in general it would be better for college football if we got the scheduling out of the hands of the schools and we had a committee or a formula or something to evaluate the schedules and make them equitably. I mean, it's just blatantly unfair that the SEC and Big Ten have to play significantly harder schedules every single year than the Big 12 and ACC and not get rewarded in any meaningful way. At least in college basketball, if you're a good conference, you'll get a lot more teams into the March Madness tournament and your teams can make a run because you all can't play each other until the Sweet 16. You don't have that option in college football.
8 teams in the college football playoff from the SEC and the Big Ten is not better than 2 from the
It is, but it's not proportionally representative of how dominant the SEC and Big Ten are, in my opinion.
4-1?
Yes,
4-1 ratio.
Yeah, I think I think the SEC and Big Ten's dominance over the ACC, Big Ten, and everyone else is more than 400% better.
Okay. Well, I would not necessarily agree with that. I think it's a difficult thing to measure. Especially when you're dealing with only 12 spots, you know, the ratio can only be so much.
I know.
This is how I will speak to the legislation going back to 1961. So basically, folks, I think we have 2 basic components to this. One initiative in this legislation from 1961 was to protect college football from a scheduling standpoint and keep certain television windows exclusive to college football to not be impeded upon by the NFL. That was part of it. The one that's being dealt with now is whether the conferences themselves will continue to negotiate with the media companies exclusively as independent entities, the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, or they will collectively be presented to the conference or to the networks as a collection of power conference college football, like the NFL. So here's my thought, that for as much as I love and believe it's been torn to shreds to a certain extent, but it still exists, the fabric of college football, the difference between Big Ten football and SEC football, the ACC and the Big 12. And for anyone who's been watching me for a long time, we'll throw in the Pac-12 when it did exist, that I thought one of the great attractions to college football, one of the great enticements and affections that we grew were the regional aspects of college football, the regionality, different styles of clothes, music, values, food, all those things, and different styles of play on the field. And the clash between the different regions and the different conferences made for a fun contrast to college football. Well, it's becoming more and more uniform, and we see it going into a NFL model where it's all going to be unified and uniform, possibly. Now, the benefits to that are exactly that: uniformity, equity in scheduling, some common sense brought to the sport in terms of things being equitable, the scheduling, the selection of the playoffs, a lot of things. But do we lose? And I'm not making a judgment call on this because I'd have to think it through. Are we losing the unique aspect of SEC football versus Big Ten football, et cetera, by going that route? But because what we want to achieve, scheduling equitability, scheduling equity, I think would be the better grammatical term, and all these other things. And because I believe the sport should be governed by a commissioner or a governing body, because we need to work for the common good of the sport and not have the SEC running off doing whatever it wants, the Big Ten doing whatever it's wants. And I'm not criticizing those commissioners in those leagues because that's what they're paid to do. Run their leagues, do what's best for their leagues. But the NFL thrives because everyone works together and the NFL makes decisions to do what's best for the sport. So what's best for the sport ultimately, even though I think there's going to be some cons to these pros, would be for all of college football to work together, for all of college football to be represented under this TV Act and have those negotiating rights as one representative league.
I generally agree with there. I think there's going to be a lot of fighting, though, of how do we get there, who's in charge, and all of that as well. And I do think it is a bit unfair to the SEC and Big Ten that they've built up this commanding lead, and that it's going to be taken away largely because the ACC and Big 12 basically said, well, you guys are too much better than us, and we don't like it. So therefore, we're just going to run away and go to somebody else and say, well, you all have to deal with it. Final thing I'll ask you about, Mark, in a different direction is we do agree that the gap between the SEC and Big Ten on the football field is relatively close. Now, which league's better is up to interpretation. But what is not up to interpretation is the most valued conference, the most important conference, the most watched conference is the SEC by a significant margin. So I want to ask you, as competition has gotten closer, more people have chosen to watch the SEC over the Big Ten. And to me, that's paradoxical. If the conferences are getting closer, you think the SEC would go down and the Big Ten would come up, and that the Big Ten would eventually pass the SEC in viewership. But the exact opposite is happening. I saw that over the last 2 years, the SEC has gone up 49% in viewership. Meanwhile, the Big Ten is down 10% in viewership over the last 2 seasons. So why is this gap occurring? And just for reference, this is regular season games only. We don't have the data for postseason games because, it's hard to justify it because you got ACC, they're playoff games at that point. But the gap per regular season games this year was 2.1 million viewers. And the SEC had 4.9 million viewers on average per football game. Meanwhile, the Big Ten only had 2.8 million viewers per game on average. So why do you think that's the case?
Okay, the first thing I would want to know is whether these statistics are taking into account Big Ten network games and SEC network games.
Does the Sports Media Watch take into account those games?
It takes into account, and that's the site that I've used to do my TV ratings in the off season. In the past, I haven't checked it for this past season. It would always take Big Ten network games into consideration, and it would not have the SEC network games there. So that would be my first question. My second one would be, and this is a very slight point, but with 2 more conference teams, the more teams you add, the more watered down your numbers are going to be. So there's 2 more teams in the Big Ten. Now, the thing that is a bit alarming is what you say about 10% down over 2 years. And that's when the conference has been strengthened with the 4 schools from the West Coast. So it's a better conference today than it was 2 years ago and has worse TV ratings. That has to be one of the big reasons why Tony Petitti has made it a point to make the more difficult schedules for the elite teams. He stated this from the time he took over the league from Kevin Warren, that we want the best teams, the elite teams in the Big Ten, to be playing more often. We should have better games throughout late October and throughout November in the Big Ten than we do now. And right after that, he stated, and we also have the goal of getting as many Big Ten teams in the playoff as possible. Now, at the time, I thought, well, those are 2 conflicting goals, because if you have your better teams playing each other, they're going to lose games and not make the playoffs. But we didn't know at the time that he was going to be pushing for AQs to be a certain number. It's difficult for me to speak to that. I think there might be a lot of nuance there in terms of what NBC provides. So let's also understand that during this time, the SEC has been taken off of CBS, which you would think would be detrimental to the SEC, you would think, and it's now exclusively an ESPN product. ESPN, ABC, all the ESPN and ABC outlets, where the Big Ten has broadened, well, maybe just kind of changed places. Obviously, it's been taken off of ABC and ESPN for the first time in its history, going back to 1966, and obviously has deepened its agreement with Fox and then been added on NBC and CBS. I don't know that those NBC games that the Big Ten has delivered on Saturday nights have been very effective. I don't know if people aren't used to watching college football on NBC. Of course, Notre Dame's been there for a long, long time, so they should be. That shouldn't be. You wouldn't think that those sorts of things would be factors in this day and age. But it's a great question. Those are some of the first things that come to mind for me. And now that CBS time slot at 3:30 Eastern time has been moved from an SEC game to a Big Ten game.
Right. And by the way, just for a small side point, but that is the worst decision maybe in the history of television. You went from a tier 1 SEC game every week to a tier 3 Big Ten game. And just to demonstrate how pathetic of a move that is, the biggest CBS game for the Big Ten was USC Oregon.
Okay.
That got 5.43 million views. That game was outdrawn within that week by Arkansas, Texas.
Arkansas, Texas.
Yeah. Arkansas, Texas got 5.
Oregon. Wow.
Huh?
So you must be looking at sports media right now. What time was the Arkansas, Texas game?
They both were, it says on here, it's 3:36 for USC, Oregon, and 3:50 for Arkansas, Texas.
Yep.
So same time, Arkansas, Texas got more viewership than USC, Oregon. And this is
Texas wasn't even that great of a game. Texas had pretty comfortable lead.
Right. And this, by the way, is across the board. This is an outlier. Every single week, except for Michigan and Ohio State, there was at least one SEC team featured. I don't know what you give the credit for Texas, Ohio State. I don't know if you classify that as an SEC or Big Ten game, but that's the only other game outside of Michigan and Ohio State in which the Big Ten had TV networks. I mean, I'm looking here at week 12, and just to give you an example of how thoroughly beaten down the Big Ten was, South Carolina and Texas A&M got 500,000 more viewership than the biggest Big Ten game of the week, which was Michigan Northwestern.
Well, I'm going to throw out another theory, and this is one that Big Ten people don't like to hear, but it's tied to what I was talking about most of the season, and that's even though the Big Ten was strong up top, is that the SEC is a deeper conference and therefore has better games. That the Big Ten, you mentioned that 3:30 spot for CBS, and you read off the best rating. Now, I don't know if that was the best game, but it was obviously one of the top 1 or 2 or 3. That, yeah, these CBS games with the Big Ten, that they're hit or miss. They're
almost all
really good. Sometimes they're usually okay. Sometimes they can't find anything, and it's a pretty bad matchup.
Yeah, it's almost always a miss in terms of viewership. I mean, they're substantially lower. Just another example that we thought going into the year would definitely be a TV rating winner, got outdrawn by an SEC game within its own week, is Penn State, Ohio State. Got outdrawn by Georgia, Florida.
Yeah,
I mean,
and somebody might want to say, well, Penn State was down, but Florida was really down, so you can't even make that claim.
Right. I mean, in terms of the gap on the field, it has gotten closer, but in terms of the gap off the field, which is going to be which way the sports are going to move, who has the power within the room, the SEC has grown substantially larger over the last 2 years. And it's not even close.
and it's very odd. It's very odd. I'm giving you, just pulling out of thin air, some possible. I don't think I've in any way answered your question or given you an answer to why this has happened, because yeah, the Big Ten has gotten better in football and challenged the SEC and possibly surpassed it. Obviously, in championships has surpassed it, but has become less popular with even better matchups.
Yeah,
You
here's
know,
my favorite one. I'm just scrolling through and find these are like gold, Mark. Just how dominant the SEC is. This is like USA basketball team against some African country. They win by 70. Indiana, Oregon, week 7, fourth highest rated game of the week at 5.59 million. The SEC had first, second, and third. Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas 1, Alabama, Missouri 2, Georgia, Auburn 3. All 3 of those games for the SEC occurred at 3 different time slots. The one that competed with Indiana, Oregon was the number 1 game of the week, Oklahoma, Texas.
well, Oklahoma and Texas is always one of the best viewed games in college football. Now, it wasn't a great game.
Yeah, but
I'm
Indiana, Oregon was the premier matchup in the regular season Big Ten.
Alabama and Missouri, that one surprises me. That was a noon game, I believe.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was a good game, but still, Missouri, they usually don't draw a crowd. So, yeah, I don't have much else I can tell you besides, some of the theories I've thrown out there. But
well, I've got a theory, Mark, of my own, and it's just 4 words, but it really encapsulate why the SEC, even if they're having a quote-unquote, well, they are having a downtime on the field, but why they will continue to be the best conference going forward, why I believe they were the best conference going forward, and why nobody can touch them. And it just means more, Mark. It's really that simple. It just means more.
Well, SEC Dog is saying yes, along the same lines down here. SEC Saturdays are part of life, always has been. However, this does not answer the question of why the change over the last 2 seasons. You're just stating something that's always existed, both of you. So I get it, and I generally agree with both of you, but that with the Big Ten getting better in football and by some measurements eclipsing, and in most people's eyes, let's forget about the metrics. Let's hone in on what's important to this argument, and that's perspective and perception by fan bases and by College Football Nation, is that the Big Ten's better because they're winning the championships and the matchups are actually better. We go back 2 years in the Big Ten, go back to 2023 and before, and basically you had a 3-game season in the Big Ten Eastern Division. Ohio State played Michigan. Michigan played Penn State. Ohio State played Penn State. And the Big Ten Western Division had a bunch of, barely ranked or non-ranked teams that would run up against each other: Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, whoever was good that year, usually Iowa and Wisconsin. And they weren't particularly nationally relevant, any of them, ever, but had to determine who was going to play in the Big Ten championship game. And those games would rate okay. They would do their 3.5 million if it was Iowa, Wisconsin, or Iowa, Minnesota. The 2 to 3 to 4 best teams. Nebraska would rank and rate pretty well, but they were just obviously a sacrificial lamb for the Big Ten Eastern Division winner. So you basically had 3 games in the conference that mattered and nothing else. And now you've got Ohio State going to Oregon last season, 2024. You've got USC and Michigan getting together both seasons. We could go on and on. Penn State and USC playing 2 years ago. Penn State and Oregon playing a big matchup on a Saturday night this past season. So there have been much better games in the Big Ten compared to what it was.
Do you think this is just because when it's this dramatic, I think there's an underlying assumption that's wrong? Do you think the assumption that USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA are big brands and add to the Big Ten, that's just a wrong assumption? And then because we've added them and they're just actually average to below average bands, that they're actually taken away from the average. That's the only thing I can come up with that would explain why they're doing so horribly.
So Oregon's about as strong as it's ever been. Are they an elite draw? No, they're a good draw. USC's fan base is completely a fair weather fan base. How good have they been? Decent, but not good enough by their standards, because they care about championships in LA. Otherwise, they're not going to pay attention. So I got to think at USC could be much stronger. Of course, UCLA is completely irrelevant and nobody cares. Nobody watches. Obviously, when I say the term nobody, that's not literal, but it's close. And Washington, I would think that their TV ratings I would think that they're another Illinois, Minnesota. Like, you look at Illinois and Minnesota's TV numbers when they're playing somebody like themselves, like somebody within that Big Ten West region that's decent, that's not Northwestern or Purdue, that they do decent numbers. They do 2.5 million if they're on like a CBS game or a FS1 game. That's usually where they get relegated to. Yeah, those four schools could have watered down the league.
Right, because I know when we talked about this a few years ago, the assumption was, well, SEC got 2 less schools, but if you add the other 4, the 4 can make up for the 2, and it's pretty even. Maybe we just looked at it completely wrong. In Texas and Oklahoma are all A-tier schools. Oregon is an A-tier. USC can be an A-tier, but they can also be an F. Washington's a D, and UCLA's an F team in terms of viewership. Maybe that's the way it should have been read. And the SEC decidedly won the battle of realignment. The SEC is decidedly winning the offseason every single year. And the SEC is decidedly better and more important than the Big Ten going forward. Because people just care more about that league than almost all of college football combined. If you do a top 100 viewer games, I think SEC on SEC was over half of them. It's just insane how depth they are as a league and how much better or how much more people value them as compared to everyone else, when the results say that shouldn't be the case. But anyway, Mark, I've got to get going. I'm looking forward to your TV rating because I know this is going to get Big 12 ACC and Big 10 man, and that's going to be fun to explain to them that we're just much better than you all in terms of it mattering more. Anyway, you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks to Real. Appreciate it. And that's a good segue from the Real MVP, because there are 3 series that we are going to deliver. One would be the TV rating. So we do that each and every off season. I know that it might be a little bit later this year than it typically is, but we're going to look through the TV ratings. And in the past, that has been an exhaustive look at it. I'm not just saying, here are the top 10 games for the entire season in the TV ratings, and the SEC's got 4 and the Big Ten's got 3, and then there it is. No. No, we are going exhaustive through TV ratings. We are looking at every game and then giving a number of metrics. I'm actually going to have to look at my previous year's renditions to see what my formulas have been in my lists to size all those up. So we will do that to some extent. TV ratings. And everything that the Real MVP talked about there, I wasn't really aware of, because I just not been connected to the sport necessarily until I was going to do my dive to do the TV ratings. Some of you are familiar with my background. I was in sports television for quite some time, so I enjoy the TV ratings. I used to enjoy in my previous employer getting the TV ratings. The first thing on Monday, we would get a ratings list when they were less prevalent, less available out there online. Get all the TV ratings to see all the sports TV ratings for all the ESPN networks compared to what CBS, NBC, and ABC and others delivered Fox. for that particular weekend in all the sports. So I always thought that that was intriguing, down to your figure skating overnight on ESPN2. They got a .06 rating. Susie Yamaguchi, or whatever her name was, her 1997 gold medal run, all sorts of every show, even all the taped shows, not just the live events, but all the taped shows. I used to just love to see those I'd see each and every day they would come out. All right. But we will do our TV ratings series, comparing the conferences. Then we will also look at our coaches rankings, which I've been working on. I kind of eyeballed it, just kind of like, he should be here, he should be there, without like really grinding it down. Just boom, boom, let's eyeball it first. It's obviously easy to do the top guys, and it's easiest to do the worst guys. And I'll let you know that if you look at most coaches' rankings, if somebody does, an exhaustive list, does every coach, I'm not talking about a top 10 list. Those are fairly easy to do. I rank all the power conference coaches. My theory and approach for the bottom is that I will rank a new coach. Most people rank the new coaches last. They just put them in order at the bottom. Just say, well, they're new coaches. They've never been in the power conferences before, so we're going to put them last. We're going to put them, last, second to last, third to last, fourth to last. No, I give them a neutral grade, meaning you're neutral. You've done nothing. And therefore, coaches, i.e. Scott Frost at UCF, Fran Brown at Syracuse, who else could we come to mind with? Anybody else that's really doing a crappy job at this point? Bill O'Brien. Anyway, I would put those guys underneath the neutral guys, because the neutral guys haven't done anything. So if I believe coaches are underperforming prior to the firing Deshaun Foster or somebody like that, I put them below the new coaches. So anyway, we'll do coaches rankings. We'll do TV ratings. And also, this is going to get all sorts of people fired up too. All-time rankings. All-time program rankings. And again, I'm not going to just spitball like some people do and say, I guess Alabama's number one all time, and I guess Michigan's 2 and Notre Dame's 3, and then Ohio State or whatever. No. I did get into some Twitter arguments with some Michigan fans who were completely out of their minds today, but I've seen that many times. Had to let them know that national championships won when forward passes were illegal are maybe not quite as valid as national championships today. That if you won national championships during segregation and the banning of the forward pass, those national championships might be slightly, and those wins and all the numbers compiled might be slightly less valid than the supreme athletes of today. We do appreciate you being here, the voice of college football. I appreciate all the contributions tonight. Let's see. We got Jackson. He's been a member here for 30 months. So you can become a channel member. That's on the front page there. And so we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And again, the Amazon link is available for all of you. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. It's one way you can help us build the channel. Amazon links in the description section of the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. And while you're on Amazon, you might as well order the book. It is Disputed National Champions. There it is. All right, folks. Thanks for stopping by. I will be back. Who knows when? Who knows when? Please like and subscribe. Please hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live, and we'll see you next time.